niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood I lay my life down right now for all my sisters and brothers, because I love them. I see them dapping and hug them. It's amazing to see how well we adapt from the struggle. Born again from a life of sin, trapped in the gutter. My mind frame was to kill my own kind. Feeling inferior, waking up ready to die. Run with them killers, so it's just a matter of time. For why take your life or let you take mine? That's when I realized the slaves killing slaves while the white man live to get old. We in them graves, the shit got me feeling plain. I opened the Bible, went through them records, found out we was royalty, a nation to be respected. But in this world we rejected, we hated for our complexion. Still fighting to get accepted. We hear the truth and reject it, but love is getting corrected. And all my niggas correct me. The commandments, the foundation we erected. Brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you stepping, cause brotherhood is a weapon. Hey, hey. Hey, hey.
Shalom Israel, and when I mean Israel, I'm talking about the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indians. The Lord's 54th annual Passover is going down again this year, sundown, April 1st at 500 South Salisbury Street in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Downtown Conventional Center. It's got enough room for all of us. The Lord's 54th annual Passover. Last year, brothers and sisters showed up from all over the world, rocking ancient garments and glorious apparel in order to serve the Most High in Christ. Now, it's that time again. Commander General Yohana's putting out the decree for all brothers and sisters to show up sundown, April 1st in Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us at the Sheridan in Raleigh, the hotel right downtown. It's at 421 South Salisbury. The Passover is right up the block at the convention center, literally within walking distance. Make sure you pull up. Make sure that you do your due diligence, because rooms are going fast and they are limited this weekend. You understand? We have months in advance of preparation. Do not wait till the last minute to get your room. The Lord's 54th annual Passover, Saturday, April 1st in Raleigh, North Carolina. Join us there.
It's about time, send the curse.
Hey, Shalom Israel, this is a public service announcement to all the sisters out there. Y'all already know what time it is. Them Passover corsages is blooming absolutely right this year. If you a married sister, rock that red corsage. And for all the single sisters out there, the white corsage was made just for you. Stop playing. You cannot be Passover ready without rocking one of these. Just $10 to complete that fit for the Lord's 54th annual Passover. Pre-order yours now. Click the link below for more info. For just $10, I got a feeling that this is just the right batch of flowers to have you looking on point and official. Sisters, make it your business to get you one, and we hope to see you there. Shalom Israel.
So I spit choo-choo, I taste the whole thing. Take my style, I'm far from a linger, just let me put it down, baby. She on the road, can't get around in my coupe, me and you, we just cruising through the town lately. Ask me some questions, girl, do you mind? What would it take to make you mine, please? Tell me be you, and we can try. So I spit choo-choo, I taste the whole thing. Check out my style, I'm far from a linger.
Oh yeah, it's going down. Join us for this year's All Black Party, hosted by Commanding General Yohana and the ISUPK. This year, it's going down in Durham, North Carolina at the Durham Armory. Last year, brothers and sisters came out from all over the world. It was a packed house to celebrate the 2022 Hebrew Academy graduates. These brothers faced life and death, and as a result, they were honored on this night for their sacrifice and their victory at the gauntlet. But wait, this year, it's going down. There will be a Hebrew concert featuring Captain Akkad, 144 the Rebel, King Ty, Captain Ty Ward, One Westworld, Lost Tribes, Captain Kastazar, I Won Ya Allah, also known as Dope E, and Officer Natazar, UPK Natazar, and much more. It's going to be an open bar. Make sure that you get your tickets. It's going down this year, 2023, the 54th annual Passover and the annual All Black Party, hosted by Commandant General Yohana and the ISUPK.
Still blessed and still we ride.
ISUPK presents the 54th annual Feast of Unleavened Bread. Last year we did it big. This year is going to be way big. More brotherhood, more sisterhood, more UPK. On Sunday, April 2nd, 2023, we're going to be at 421 South Salisbury Street in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Sheraton Raleigh Hotel Ballroom. We're calling all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians to come join us.
Shalom, this is the ISUPK under Commanding General Yohana. And since 1969, we've been teaching the Bible that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians are the real Israelites. The people that you read about in the Bible, man. The people of the Bible have descendants who are alive today. And those people today would be blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. And at the ISUPK, we teach that if we follow God's laws, statutes, and commandments, we can be that top ruling nation again, man. Under King David, we ruled the earth, man. All the nations around us were subdued. And guess what? If we serve Christ, who descends from King David, we're going to rule the earth under Christ, man. That's right. So with that being said, for those of you that are new to class, we do have a school in the UK. The address is 394 Lodge Road, postcode B18-5PW. School is in the city of Birmingham, England. You know what I mean? For those of you that don't know, and you know what I mean, the ISUPK is in the UK, man. You know what I mean? Doing camps, doing damn their radio shows, podcasts, classes, doing all of that, man. So with that being said, this is the second part of the Feast of Purim. So we're going to get into what Esther did, man. For those of you that wasn't in class yesterday, we're reading about a sister called Esther. And she wasn't like the women of now where they only care about themselves. Right. She cared about her people and did what it took with the power of the Lord to save her people, man. And that's what we're going to read about today. So we can read on where we left off from yesterday. Was it Esther 4:1? You want to read it for me, Baba Kushar?
Right, Esther 4, verses 1. When Mordecai perceived that all was done, Mordecai rent his clothes and put on sackcloth with ashes and went out into the midst of the city and cried loud and a bitter cry.
All right, so this is a bit of a history lesson right here. In the past, when we were sad or we mourned, we had a culture where we ripped our clothes, man. Now, of course, we don't do it now, but in the past, that was part of our culture. where you're sad, no, you start ripping your shirt and all that. You know what I mean? It's what we did. Don't ask me why. It's just it is while it is, man. You know what I mean? So we wanted to let people know, listen, we are sad, man. It's morning. And he didn't do it in his house. He ran out in the midst of the city. Why is that? So that people can see him and ask him, what's wrong? You mean, why are you this way? And then he'll let them know why. Because what was going to happen was a big thing that affected all of us, man.
Right.
Read on.
And came even before the king's gate, for none might enter the king's gate clothed with sackcloth.
All right. So now, with Mordecai, he wanted to go into the king's gate, but for you to present yourself to the king of the Persians and the Medes, you couldn't be in sackcloth, meaning you had to see the king and be in some garment, man, something worthy of some respect, man, meaning you couldn't come to the king like how you wanted to. And I'll give you an example. If you have to go to a court, you can't go to court wearing what you like. You can't go to court wearing your Adidas a tracksuit. You need to go to court wearing what? A shirt, a blazer, some shoes. And likewise, in the past, if you wanted to see the king, you had to dress a certain way. You know what I mean? Read on.
And in every province, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, there was a great mourning amongst the Jews, and fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes.
So now, of course, now they obviously know what is going to happen. So just like Mordecai, all the Jews are doing it. Wherever we are, from India to Ethiopia to our homeland, we're all mourning. Why? Because we are going to die, man. In the modern day terms, what's that called? A cleansing. Do you know what I mean? This is an ancient ethnic cleansing right here, where they're trying to eradicate one race of people. And what's funny is, even in this modern day, we are the people everyone wants to get rid of, man. By the
That's right.
medicine, by all manner of things, it attacks us. Why? Because we are that nation that the earth wants to get rid of, man.
Right.
And even in this time of the Persians and the Medes, nations wanted us gone, man. It's nothing new. We are the same people living through the same thing, man. Just with iPhones and WhatsApp. But listen, we go through the same things. Read on.
Then called Esther the Hattic, one of the king's chamberlains, who gave to Sakia, whom he had appointed to attend her, and gave a commandment that Mordecai to know what it was and why it was.
Mm-hmm.
And Hatach went forth to Mordecai unto the street of the city, which was before the king's gate. Mordecai told him of all that had happened unto him, and the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them.
Just now with Mordecai, he's trying to let Esther know what's happening. And listen, man, this Haman is paying big money too, man. Meaning, of course, you know what I mean? Listen, it could be 6,000 years ago. Everyone likes money, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It can be check, online banking. Listen, even in the past, people love money. And of course, he wants us dead. What better a motivation can you give someone than money, man? I'll give you 100 talents of gold, this silver, this in diamonds. Listen, man, people are sharpening swords for the Jews. And listen, man, this man hated us that much. He's willing to take money off the king to kill us. All because one brother from the tribe of Benjamin won't bow down to him.
Right.
And is that far-fetched? No. Listen, man, there's white women out there. They hate you and me. Why? Because you won't Why? Because you won't mess with them, man. You walk past them like they're no one, and then they got the nerve to call you racist, man. You know, I think that black guy's a little bit racist. Why? Because he doesn't want you. Listen, man, Haman was the same way. You know what I mean? You were under the king. You got Ethiopians serving you, Indians. You know what I mean? All nations. And the one black man that just doesn't give you what you want, we all have to die, man. And listen, that's how our oppressor is today, man. You know what I mean? In the UPK, we follow the Lord, and you just can't have us. You know what I mean? You could have a brother in the world, but that's not good enough, man. They want you that serve the Lord, and when you don't do it, you're racist. You know what I mean? I don't know why, but he seems a bit mean to me. I feel a bit uncomfortable around him. And really, what all of that means is he's not worshiping me, man. Right. He's not bowing down to me. That's right. And I can't take it. Read on.
Also, he gave him a copy of the writing of the decree that was given at Shushan to destroy them, and to show it unto Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go unto the king and make supplication unto him, but to make a request before him for her people.
There, so now, like, he's telling Esther everything. Like, look, I've even got a flyer, meaning everywhere where the Persians and the Medes had dominance, there was a flyer there. Listen, if you kill the Jews, listen, man, you're gonna get paid. And he's showing, listen, Esther, this is no joke. You need to do something. And let me tell you something. There's a reason why the book of Esther is in the Bible. Because this book of Esther is meant to show you, listen, for your people, you're meant to go far and beyond, man. The Christian church has you thinking, listen, it's all about you, man. You can't lose your job. You mean, I'm going to say black people, well, who's paying my rent? You know what I mean? I got a car to pay for every month. You know what I mean? The church makes us selfish. Listen, Esther was next to the king. Esther could have been like, yeah, but I'm next to the king. You know, if I risk my life for you, I might lose what position I have. And Esther didn't do that. And why do we read this book? To let us know that we got to care about our race of people. That's right. Because if you don't do it, who is going to do it? You know what I mean? Like, I remember being very young, and a lot of people say, you know, black people need help, but I'm not doing it. Listen, man, we need, you know what I mean? We need black business one day. So you say to them, so why don't you do it? Nah, man, listen, man, I'm telling you. You know what I mean? What they're saying is, it needs to happen, but it's not going to be me. And do you know how ridiculous that is? Right. So if it doesn't start with you, then who's going to do it? If you don't go, listen, I'm going to do it, then you can't expect no one else to do it. And listen, with Esther, she didn't think like that. She's like, listen, my people need saving, and it's on me. I can't say, well, you know, surely there's some other Israelite out there who's rich and famous. You know what I mean? You go to him. Listen, man, in the UPK, every officer, matter of fact, everyone in the school, it's on you, man. That's right. It ain't gonna be nobody else. You look in the mirror and go, listen, it's up to me to save blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians. Right. Read on.
And Pt2 came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Pt2 and gave him a commandment unto Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people in the king's province do know that whatsoever, whether a man or woman, shall come to the king in a court and is not called, right, the laws, there is a law that they must be put to death, except such the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called to come unto the king these 30 days.
All right, so meaning, you know, for you to talk to the king, you had to be called. You couldn't just run up in You couldn't just run up in the king's hall and be like, King, listen, man, I got 1, 2, 3, 4. You had to be called, and if you did that, you'll be put to death. Why? Because you're disrespecting the king, man. You know what I mean? And of course, a king can't be violated, because if you violate him, what does that mean? Everyone else is gonna violate him. Right. If the king lets you live and you wasn't called into the hall, next week everyone's gonna be in the hall. I got this problem. I got that problem. We need this. So now, man, you had to be called by the king. If not, then that was punishable by death. Reader.
And they told to Mordecai Esther's words. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not that with thyself that thou hast escaped in the king's house more than all the Jews.
And listen, man, that hits home, man. With Mordecai is giving Esther a reality check, man. And Esther, listen, man, the king had called me. Esther saying, listen, don't think you're gonna escape what's gonna happen to us. You know what I mean? Listen, you can be the king's wife, but you're a Jew. Right. And the decree is to kill all the Jews, man. How do you know the king might want you dead? And that's a lesson for all rich Black, Latinos, and Native Indians, man. So many of the rich of us think you can escape what happens to us. Right. You know what I mean? There's rich Blacks and Hispanics. The police harass poor Black people. And what happens? The police harass rich Black people too, man. Right. In their mind, they think, listen, I'm rich. That can't happen to me. And the policeman deals with them the same way, man. On your knees now. Yeah, but I'm so-and-so, on your knees. And then it's like, I'm appalled, man. I felt violated. That's how poor Black people feel too, man. That's how poor Latinos feel too. Just because you're rich, you can't escape it, man. That's right. And this is what Mordecai told Esther. Don't think we're going to die and you're going to live comfortably next to the king. Listen, you're going to die too, Esther, man. You're going to be on the gallows next to Mordecai, right, if you don't do it, man. And it's funny. I'll give you one example. You had a rapper, Jay-Z, man. And listen, there's video, so we're not lying. You know what I mean? Obviously, with Jay-Z, he's married to Beyonce. And Beyonce's sister in the elevator was attacking Jay-Z like what happens to a poor Black man, man. The sister just don't like you, and she's cussing you, and she's kicking you. And of course, you can't hit a woman, so you're like, back up, man, please. Look, man, stop. On the video, Jay-Z is doing the same thing. Beyonce's sister, she's trying to hit him, and Jay-Z's like, stop. He's trying to hit him in the nuts. He's doing that blocking up block, like, listen, man, stop. You know what I mean? And listen, what happened to Jay-Z happens to poor Black people. Why? Because he can't escape it. Although in his mind, he thinks, he's elevated above us. What happened in that elevator happens to every poor Black man every day, man. Right. Reader.
For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall there an enlargement and the deliverance arise to the Jews from another place.
It's like I've read that part down. So meaning, Esther, if you don't do it, the Lord's going to use someone else, man. Right. And let me tell you something. Why let it be somebody else when it can be you, man? Why wouldn't you want the Lord to use you instead of somebody else? And let me tell you something. It's going to be a shame on you, man. The Lord had to use someone else. Why? Because you were selfish, man. You only cared about yourself. And the Lord wants his people saved. So now the Lord had to use somebody else. And what does that mean for you? The Lord isn't with you anymore, man. Why? Because the Lord had to use someone else. Always let this sink in, yeah. In heaven, let it be like this, where the Lord's like, you know what? We need Parasha. We need Shamgar. We need Ariella. We need everyone, man. Everyone in this class, in the council in heaven, they're like, we need you, man. Don't let it be like him. Listen, man, we're going to need somebody else. that brother's selfish, man. We're gonna have to raise up someone else because he's never gonna do it. And this is what Mordecai told Esther: if you don't do it, you can't escape what's gonna happen to us. Or guess what? If you don't do it, let the Lord raise salvation from somewhere else, man. Let the Lord raise up someone else because you're too selfish to stand for your people, Esther. Reader.
But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
And listen, man, and Mordecai, he didn't hold back. He's like, listen, if you don't do it, the Lord will raise someone else up, and guess what? Your family is going to die, man. While the Lord raises up someone else to save us, you're gonna die because you don't want to do it. Guess what? That's gonna happen to you, Esther. You know what I mean? The king one day, he might not like you no more. I might want you dead, man, because you don't want to save us. Or Esther, the Lord has you in this position to save us. Maybe the Lord has you as the king's wife because the Lord knew one day this would happen, and that's why you're here. But guess what? You're gonna find out by your actions, man. You're gonna find out by what you do. Reader.
Then Esther bade them to return to Mordecai with this answer: go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan and fast for me. Neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also will, and my maidens will fast likewise. So I will go unto the king, which is according to the law, not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish.
And listen, man, this is why we remember this day. Right. Esther was courageous, man. You know what I mean? That's the spirit of the Lord right there, where you're going to do something and you might die, but I'm going to do it anyway, man.
That's right.
Listen, like, we go to camp and we come home. You do know we could go to camp and not come home.
That's right.
And we still go to camp, man. You know what I mean? We're excited. You're saying, I got this breakdown here, and you know what I mean? I'm going to this book. Knowing that at that same camp you're doing, we could die. And listen, when you serve the Lord, you become courageous, man. Just like Esther.
That's right.
The rule of the king is you can't present yourself to the king if you're not called. And Esther, like, listen, guys, fast me. I'm gonna do this, and if I perish, I perish, man.
Right.
But listen, for the love of you, that's what I'm gonna do. And listen, in the UPK, for the love of blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians, we're gonna go on the street. We're gonna talk against Christianity. We're gonna talk against Islam. We're gonna talk against all the superpowers of the earth. And if we die, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not turning back. I'm not gonna drive halfway to camp and then do a U-turn on and the roundabout. Listen, man, you know what I mean? We are doing it, man.
Right.
And if we die, man.
That's right.
Listen, man, in the UPK, a brotherhood is real, man. If I die serving the Lord, my family is taken care of, man.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about, you know what I mean? What about my kids? What about my wife? Oh, listen, Commanding Jeremy Hannah, he will look after them, man.
That's right.
Listen, man, you know what I mean? All of our families, you know what I mean? School will look after them. All I got to do is just go to camp, man. And that's what we got in the UPK, the Spirit of the Lord, man, the Holy Spirit, which is courage, man. In the book of John, with Christ, what did he say? If anyone's ever read it before, the book of John.
Who's my brother? Who's my mother?
That's true, but he spoke about the Comforter, and you know what I mean, what was all that about? If you know what I mean, if you read John or
I mean, the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Christ himself came and brought that to Israel, so we understood that in the midst of all the things that we face, you know, the Lord sends that Spirit among us, so that we will be solid. You know what I mean?
That's right. So with Christ, he was going to go, And of course, like, you know what I mean, with his men, they was under Christ and they was afraid and saying, listen, you know what I mean, with a comforter, he's with you. You're gonna be courageous. Listen, I'm not gonna be here to physically do the work, but listen, man, you're gonna do it. And when you read the book of Acts, those men were not afraid, man. You know what I mean? And in the UPK, we got the comforter, man. Imagine this: we speak against the two biggest religions on the face of the earth, man.
That's right.
You know what I mean? In England, we speak against Islam, which everyone is afraid to do, man. And listen, we're not scared. You can chant all the Allah Akbars you want, and with that microphone, we talk over you, man.
That's right.
That's the comforter. Because listen, you know what I mean? No other religion does what we do. They're afraid, man. You know what I mean? All they say is religion. Because, you know, with other religions, we don't agree with it yet. Nah, man. You know what I mean? Forget all that, man. They're lies, man. It's nonsense. And it's not for black people.
That's right.
Reader.
So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther commanded him.
All right. So, you know, so with Mordecai, he told his people have the fast, you know what I mean? Or what Esther told him to do. All right, so Esther 5:1.
Esther chapter 5 and verse 1. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house, over against the king's house, and the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house.
And now, of course, we just read it, but imagine what Esther had to do, man.
Right.
You're getting ready to do something that you know you shouldn't do, but you have to do it, man. You know what I mean? Imagine this. You know what I mean? She's putting on a royal apparel, knowing she's gonna break the king's rules. Like, listen, I'm gonna present myself, man. You know what I mean? Knowing this is punishable by death, but you're getting ready to do it anyway, man.
Right.
Listen, that's you at camp, man. You're lacing up your boots, getting in the car, knowing you're doing something that, you know, someone else would not do.
Right.
You know what I mean? And listen, man, you know what I mean? Definitely everyone in this class, give yourselves a hand, man. Sometimes you don't realize what you're doing till you do it, man. And sometimes reading about Esther and reading about great men and women in the Bible, when you apply it to your life, you realize that the Lord is with you, man.
That's right.
Because you do things that a lot of people wouldn't do, man. There's people, they've come through these doors, and as soon as you mention camp, you can't find them anymore, man. Every time it's camp, you know, I got a little work, man. Nah, man, you know, my legs hurt me next week. Every week, like, just can't make it, man. Why? Because they're afraid. Go ahead, Carol.
And as you talk about camp, if the Lord wasn't with us, enough time we could have get crushed.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Enough time. And the Lord was with us. No one could have touched us.
Absolutely, man. You know, if you never heard it on the mic, we've been to some camps, and listen, man. You know what I mean? We've been untouched, had big crowds surrounded, man. And guess what? We make it home, man.
That's right.
I make it home and have my a weekend soup, man. You know what I mean? With the boiled dumplings and potatoes, and listen, you know what I mean? I'm unscathed. You see what I mean? All of us go back home. That is proof that the Lord is with you.
That's right.
Because many times, you know, if the Lord ain't with you, we would have been dead, man. We would have been on the news, man. But we're not. Which proves that what? The Lord is with us, man.
So, like I said, if I could.
Good.
Right. That's just like Trooper Carol once said, you said yourself, right? Like, we've been there. We've been in Hyde Park where we've physically seen on video. Anyone can go on YouTube. We've seen Hyde Park where Muslims are known. They don't win a debate. What they do, they gang up on you and they try to intimidate you and scare you and try to even attack you. You know, when we stood there face to face with those Muslims, those stone worshippers, we stood boldly in the face of them. We stood for the Lord, outnumbered, right? But we were still strong because the Lord was just like you said. You understand? No one else, no fake Israelite group, no other religion could go to Hyde Park in the UK as boldly as we did and stand strong as we did. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just another testament to what the Lord's done for the ISUPK.
That's right, man. No one does what we do. So, definitely, if any of you ever think the Lord is not with you, just look at what you do, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? Reader.
Over against the gate of the house, verse 2. And it was so, when the king saw Esther, the queen, standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight.
And let me tell you something. When you serve the Lord just makes things happen. But the first step is you being willing, man.
Right.
Listen, Esther was afraid, man. She's like, listen, if I die, I die. And it just so happened that she was in the apparel and the king saw favor in her sight, man. It just worked out that way. Why? Because the Lord saw that she was willing.
Right.
And again, let that be a lesson to you, man. When you serve the Lord, you gotta be willing, man. The first step is you want to do it.
Right.
And listen, things work out for itself, man. You mean you gotta be willing to go to camp. You gotta be willing to go to class. And then guess what? The Lord just makes it happen, man. But the first step is, I want to do this. Because if you don't, you're always going to find a way not to do it, man. If Esther didn't want to do it, what would have happened? She would have found a way. I got dressed. You know what? The king, he's not going to listen anyway. They was going away. But guess what? When you're willing, that's when the Lord does the other half, man. Reader.
And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
So Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter.
So now the king called Esther, meaning what? Everything worked out.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's like, if I die, I die. She was willing to do it. The Lord saw that willingness. And guess what? It happened. The king saw her, obtained favor in her sight, meaning, what does she want, man? You know what? Here, come. And then what? She put her hand on the scepter. Reader.
Verse 3. Then said the king unto her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther, and what is thy request? It shall be given, it shall be even given thee to the half of the kingdom.
So listen, man, the king of Ahasuerus loved Esther, man. He's saying, what do you want? I'll even give you half of the kingdom.
Right.
And let me tell you something. You know what I mean? You can read it in history books. Yes. The Persians and the Medes had like the biggest empire from Ethiopia all the way to India.
Right.
And listen, man, that's a lot of land.
Right.
Before the Persians and the Medes, the Babylonians, they never had that much. You know what I mean? But the Persians and the Medes had the most land at that time. Obviously, within the Greeks, they took what the Persians and the Medes had, but yeah, and they added on, of course. But at that time, the Persians and the Medes ruled a vast majority of land, and the army they had was ridiculous too, man. You know, who's heard of the Immortals? You know what I mean? Obviously, you watch the film F-300. The Immortals was a regiment of the Persians and the Medes. Now, they wasn't called the Immortals because they can't die. Just that there was so many of them that whenever people fought against them, you will kill lots of them, and they just never stopped. You know what I mean? There was lots more. You could kill 1,000. There was so many of them. Another 1,000 came. You killed that 1,000. Another 1,000 came. And that regiment was called the Immortals because that regiment they had you just could not get rid of them. You know what I mean? And that's how much soldiers the Persians and the Medes had. And Ahasuerus is saying to Esther, listen, I'll give you half of the kingdom. That's how good she looked at it. Like, listen, man, you know what I mean? I can have the western side, you have the east, man. You know what I mean? That's how good Esther looked, man. Read on.
Verse 4. And Esther answered, if it seem good unto the king, let the king and Haman come to this day unto the banquet that I have prepared for him.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 5. Then the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared.
All right. So now Esther has a plan right here, man. So she knows what Haman wants to do. So she's invited him to a banquet, man. So what? When he's in front of the king, you can't run, you can't hide. You know what I mean? So now she's setting the scene so that what? She can save the nation of Israel.
That's right.
Read on.
Verse 6. And the king said unto Esther, at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted thee. And what is thy request, even to the half of the kingdom?
So now the king's like, listen, man, I'll give you anything, man. At this banquet, just let me know what you want. And listen, Esther, you can have it, man. You know what I mean? Which you gotta be careful, man. Of course, this situation here benefits us, but you gotta be careful, man. A man can love a woman so much, he's willing to give her everything, man. Some of you men, you got your women having your bank card, man. You know what I mean? Now, you know what I mean? It's not a sin, but you know, I would rather not, man. You know what I mean? But that's what some people do, man. They're giving women joint accounts and them things there, man. And they do it out of love, which also should let a woman know you have that power, but don't abuse it, man. You know what I mean? There's many powers we have on the earth, but the best quality you can ever have is never abuse that power that you got, man. Men love women all the time. Even this king, he's willing to give Esther half of the kingdom. And a woman knowing that, you shouldn't abuse it, man. Read on.
Verse 7. Then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, verse 8, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come. Oh, I've read that already.
It's saying the same thing.
Come to the banquet that I shall prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king hath said. Verse 9. Then went Haman forth that day, joyful and with a glad heart.
All right, so now let's break it down. So now, you know, on that day, Haman, you know, he's walking happy, joy of heart, man. You know, happy. You know what I mean? With Haman right here, you know what I mean? He's walking around, living, you know what I mean? Knowing that, you know what I mean? Soon the Jews, his enemy is going to die. He's walking around glad, you know what I mean? Tiptoeing, tuliping, you know what I mean? Then read on.
Verse 9. Then went Haman forth that day joyful with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai.
And listen, man, he can't let Mordecai go, man. Meaning, he let this one man mess up his day. He's walking around glad. He saw a Mordecai. Mordecai didn't stand up for him. And now he's full of indignation. This black bastard. He's not dancing for him, man. He didn't get up this wog. Can't stand him, man. You know what I mean? And why? Because he believes he's better than us, man. Which is nothing new, man. Haman, you know what I mean? Of course, on the earth, people come back, man. And that's our oppressor, man.
That's right.
He looks at us and thinks we should give him everything. We should give him all the honor, all the respect. And when you don't, they're upset, man. That white woman that thinks you must like her, when you just walk past like, what, like, you know, bye. I think he's racist, you know. I don't like him, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm not being funny, but it comes to work a bit mean. He don't talk to no one, aka he don't like me, man. You know what I mean? And that's Mordecai right there. That's Haman right there, man. That's your oppressor when you don't move out of his way. I find him a bit aggressive, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is, man. And all of that really is you're not worshiping him. Read on.
Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called for his friends and Zeresh, his wife. Verse 11. And Haman told them of the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and servants of the king.
There's now with Haman, he goes home, you know what I mean? And he's like, listen, man, you know what I mean? He's like, yo, listen, man, you know what I mean? They've advanced him. And listen, man, every oppressor hates that, man. When like, I'll give you an example. Whenever you and them work on the job and, you know what I mean, you get advanced, subconsciously, they think they are above you, man. You get advanced. Oh, gosh, you know what I mean? They gave him that job, man. What's the world coming to, man? They gave this job over me. Listen, man, England's down in the gutter. You know what I mean? And listen, Haman felt the same way, man. That what with Haman, he was elevated. So that with Mordecai, he was elevated above him, man. Reader.
Verse 12. Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther, the queen, did not let no man come in with the king unto the banquet that she had prepared but myself. And tomorrow am I invited unto her also with the king. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate.
And look at that, man. This heathen can have anything he wants, but because one black man from the tribe of Benjamin just won't bow to him, that's haunting him, man.
Right.
It's just on his mind, like, you know, I'm listening, like, I mean, I've got the gold, the silver, the best of the empire of the Persians and the Medes. But this man at the gate, he won't stand up to me, man. He won't give me the respect I think I deserve. And now you got to read that and know, listen, when you serve the Lord, this is why so many nations hate us, man.
That's right.
Because they believe they should get something off you which they don't deserve, man. You know what I mean? They want us to serve their gods, be in their church, be in their mosque. And the day you stand up and go, nah, man, I'm serving my God, all of a sudden, you become their enemy, just like Haman, man, over 2,000 years ago. Reader.
Verse 14. Then said Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou unto the king, that Mordecai may be hanged thereon. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made.
Listen, man, it shows how life goes round, man. Listen, man, the same way the same way in the past we was hanged, Haman wanted us hanged too, man.
Right.
Which shows you that the Bible is a living book. You know what I mean? This man, Haman right here, he would be an Edomite or an oppressor, and Haman wanted Mordecai hanged. And listen, man, the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, our slave masters wanted us hanged. Which shows you this Bible is a living book, man.
That's right.
You know what I mean? The one that's dead the same way in the time of the Persians and the Medes, man. Don't let no one say to you the Bible isn't real, man. Don't let no one say to you, you know, the Bible's outdated, because we have an oppressor wanting a black man killed in the same way, man. Over 2,000 years ago.
Right.
Reader.
Chapter 6, verse 1. On that night could not the king sleep, and he commanded to bring the book of records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king.
All right, so now the king, he had a book where, you know, basically while he was the king, everything was chronicled. You know what I mean? The good and the bad. So now let's find out what he saw in this book. Reader.
Khan. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's chamberlains and keepers of the door, who sought to lay hand on the king Ahasuerus,
So now in this book, you know, it was documented that this man, Mordecai, he told the king about two of his men that wanted the king dead. So it was a chronicalized in this book that, listen, this man saved the king's life. He made the king aware of an assassination attempt, man. Read on.
And the king said, what honor and dignity has been done to Mordecai for this?
So now the king, after reading in the book, he's like, hang on, what was done unto this man, man? This man saved my life. This man stopped me from being assassinated by two of my own bodyguards, man.
That's right.
You know what I mean? What was done unto this man? We showed you how honorable this a king was. He's not an Israelite, but he knows by what this man said, saved that king's life, man.
Right.
And now let that sink in about England, man. When black people built the London Underground, built the NHS, and guess what? The prime ministers of today don't remember none of it, man. Read on.
Then said the king's servants that ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house to speak unto the king, to hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him.
So now with Haman, while the king's going through this book, and he's more concerned about what Mordecai did. With Haman, he's there with his agenda. He's come there to talk about, listen, man, we need to hang this Mordecai guy, man. I can't stand this, you know what I mean, idiot, man. That's a nice word, of course. You know what I mean? But while he's going to present this to the king's got a proposition for him. Read on.
And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman standeth in the court. And the king said, let him come in. So Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom would the king delight to do honor more than to myself?
And you see that? That shows a lot about him. Who told you that the king's talking about you, man? But he's so up his own ass. In his mind, the king's talking about me. You see? And that's our oppressor even till this day, man.
That's right.
The lazy on the job, having a fag break every 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden, when the manager's talking about the best workers on the job, for some reason in their mind, they think it's them. In their mind, it's me, man. You know what I mean? I'm grafting, I'm sweating my bollocks off in there, man. And you listen, he's not doing nothing, man.
Right.
But in his mind, you know, allegedly, he's doing all the work, man. And that's Haman. The king's, you know what I mean? You don't know the king's talking about you, but for some reason, you're convinced it's you. Reader.
And Haman answered the king, for the man whom the king delighted to honor, let the royal apparel be brought, which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which he set upon his head. And let this apparel and the horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that they may array the man withal, whom the king delighted to honor, and bring him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaim before him, thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delighted to honor.
So now, have this in mind. He's saying all of this. Why? Because he thinks it's him. Well, you know, king, what I think you should do, you should honor this man. You know what I mean? And you should have him in the robe, have him on horseback, because in his mind, he thinks it's him. So he's thinking about what he would like, but he's going to find out it's not for him, man. It's for someone greater than him. Reader.
Then the king said to Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew, and sitteth at the king's gate.
Oh my, listen, he must have had a heart attack. Yeah, King Arthur did this. That, you know what I mean? That's great. Him, oh my gosh, like, you know what I mean? With Hammond, you know what I mean? In his mind, he must have been crying like him. Why? Because he thinks he should get that. And imagine someone you don't like, they're getting it, man. Someone you can't stand, what you had in your mind for you, your enemy gets it, man. Listen, man, Hammond must have went home crying, man, knowing that his enemy got what he believes he should have got, man. Reader.
Khan, let nothing fall of all that thou hast spoken.
So now the king, like, listen, you said this for that man, Mordecai, make it happen, man.
Right.
All what you said, you know what I mean? Let that happen to Mordecai. Hammond must have had a heart attack that day, man. Why? Because he thought it was all for him. Come to find out, it's for someone who he can't stand, man. Reader.
Khan. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai.
Ooh, that must have hurt him, man. He's putting their reins back like, motherfucking bitch, punk, prick. Yeah, man, here, Hammond, yo, here, man, yeah, man, cool. That must have hurt him, man. As he put the apparel on his back, he's probably shaking in anger, like, here you go, Mordecai. Yeah, man, button it up, prick, strangling him a little bit, you know what I mean? If I can't take it, you know what I mean? Yeah, man, brother, you good? Yeah, man. Yeah, man, here, man, go, man. Yeah, man. Even his shoulders, they put it on. Yeah, man, good, man. Good, man. Yeah, man. Yeah. Even Mordecai's like, easy, man. You know what I mean? If I can't take it, man. But guess what? Here's what Hammond doesn't understand. It's about who the Lord is with, man.
That's right.
And in the Bible, it says that in the book of Psalms, it says we should have a table before our enemies. Does anyone know what that means? King David, he said it in Psalms. Go ahead, sis.
Look, is it like you're gonna be successful and your enemies will see everything, that will reap, that will see everything that will fruitful. So even if they want you to fall, they will see that you go fall, sort of thing.
That's right. Let's give her a hand, man. That's what it means. It's meaning what? Listen, man. You're gonna survive before your enemies. There's gonna be a table you're gonna eat. You're gonna survive. And listen, we survive before our enemies, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in the book of Psalms, that's what King David said. There's a table before our enemies, meaning, of course, your enemy doesn't want you to eat. And the Lord prepares a table before your enemies, meaning they watch you live and do good, even though they can't stand you.
Right.
And this is Hammond right here. The person who is his enemy, listen, the king cares about him more than Hammond, man. And imagine that your enemy has to robe you, man. Your enemy has to clothe you. Reader.
Khan. Then took Haman the apparel and the horse, and arrayed Mordecai, and brought him on horseback through the street of the city, and proclaimed before him, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to his house, mourning, and having his head covered.
So with Hammond, it's like, he ran home like, he can't believe what he had to do, man. He had to robe his enemy. So he goes home crying, man. You know what I mean? Reader.
Khan. And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends, everything that had been befallen him. Then said his wise men and Zeresh, his wife, unto him, if Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him.
And listen, man, even they knew you can't mess with the chosen people of God, man.
Right. That's right.
You know what I mean? He should have been told this ages ago, man. It would have saved him all that hard work. And listen, even today, it's not rocket science that you can't mess with the chosen people of God, man.
That's right.
I say this all the time. How do you know God loves us, man? Look at our history. We are a people of suffering, dying, being abused, and we are still here, man.
Right.
still here, living, multiplying. Let me tell you something. Black people should be extinct, man. And we're here with, you know what I mean, big families, lots of kids. Listen, the Lord is with us, man. And you can't mess with the Jews, man. No matter what you want to do, no matter what you try to do, we're always here, man. When really, what we've been through as a race of people, we should not be here. You know what I mean? So many of us died just to get to the Western Hemisphere, and we're here. And there's loads of us. It shows you that you can't mess with the chosen people of God, man.
That's right.
Reader.
Can't. And while they were yet talking with him, came the king's chamberlains and hasted to bring Haman unto the banquet that Esther had prepared.
So imagine that, man. Isn't house crying and bawling then? You know what I mean? Someone like, listen, you need to go to that banquet. So, you know, you wipe the tears up quick, like, okay, cool, man. And then now he goes to the banquet. Read on. Yeah, we obviously will mix it up, you know. Can't make one man read for ever, you know. It'd be unfair.
Esther chapter 7, verse 1. So the king and Haman came to the banquet of Esther the queen. And the queen said again unto Esther for the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? And it shall be granted thee. What is thy request? It shall be performed, even unto half of the kingdom.
There, so now the king's asking again, what do you want, Esther, man? I'm at this feast. I know there's something you want, but you're not telling me. But why? She's waiting for Haman to come. So what? She can confront this heathen, man. Read on.
Then Esther, the queen, answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, if it please the king, let my life be given to me at the petition of my people at my request.
So now here we go, man. This is now where Esther, she's now speaking with the king and saying, listen, I have a request and it's for me and my people, man. It wasn't just for her. You know what I mean? She cared about her people, which is a problem that in the world, of course, we have as a race of people. We are too busy being individuals, man. Well, you know, I just care about me and my family. Well, listen, you and your family, me and my family, we are all one race of people, man. You know what I mean? And now, when you care about race, there's no time for individuality, man. You know what I mean? Well, you know, as a black man, I'm just looking after mine. And then now, you know what's sad? When something bad happens to them, the black community needs to speak up. We need to, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like we don't help one another. When you didn't help me, you was too busy being an individual. And that's the problem, man. With being a race of people, we don't have time for individuality, man.
That's right.
You mean, look at every other race. There's no such thing as an individual. They serve one God. They support one community. There's no individuality. I'm a black man, but you know, I want to help the Arabs and I want to help the European. It's not going to work. One nation of people have one common goal, and you can't achieve that by being an individual, man.
Right.
Just like Esther, she says, me and my people, meaning it's bigger than her. Reader.
For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I'd held my tongue, although the enemy could not countervail the king's damage.
So now she's breaking down to the king. Listen, man, someone wants us dead. In your empire, if we were just to be bondmen, I would even accept that. But listen, there's someone out there that wants us exterminated, man.
Right.
They want us ethnic cleansed. You know what I'm saying? Listen, in this empire, if we were just to serve, I could even let that go. But when it comes to my people and someone wants all of us dead, king, this is when I gotta talk up. This is when I've got to say something. Read on.
Then the king, Ahasuerus, answered and said unto Queen Esther, who is he, and where is he, that dares presume in his heart to do so?
So now, of course, you know, the king loves Esther. So he's like, someone wants your race of people dead. Who, you mean, who is this man? Who's this person that wants to do so? And now let's find out who it is. Read on.
And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked man Haman.
Oh, imagine that, man. At the banquet, Esther's like, it's him. It's Haman, man. Imagine the tension in that room, man. There's like a spotlight on Haman's, like, you know, it's like just circling him. You know what I mean? Haman's like, oh shit, why me, man? You know what I mean? Listen, man, Esther, she done it the right way, man. She put him on the spot. Like, listen, this wicked man wants my race of people dead, king, man. Read on.
Salakia. And the king arising from the Salakia, I'm on verse 6, sorry. Right? And Esther said, the adversary is the enemy, this wicked man Haman. And Haman was afraid before the king and the queen.
So imagine that, man. It gets pointed out in front of everyone in the banquet. It's Haman, and he's afraid before the king and the queen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's some evil, wicked man, man. For wanting a whole race of people killed, all because one brother wouldn't stand up to him, man, when he walked by. So imagine that all eyes are on him in the room, like, shit, goddamn. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do I do? Read on.
And the king, arising from the banquet of wine in his wrath, went into the palace garden, and Haman stood up to make a request for his life to Esther, the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king.
So he knew he was dead, man. He knew that from how the king walked off in a rage, that day he was gonna die, man. The king was gonna send someone his way. He knew that he knew that it wasn't gonna live to see the next day. Read on.
Then the king returned out of the palace garden into the banquet of wine, and Haman was fallen upon the bed whereon Esther was.
Gosh, imagine how that looks, man. As soon as the king walks in the room, he's on the bed begging Esther. Now, of course, as a king, you see this man on the bed and your wife there. What are you thinking, man? That this man's trying to have sex with your wife, man. So now the king's angry with you already. And then now it comes to walk in a room and you're on his bed, man. With his wife standing up. It's a bad day for Haman, man. Today's just not his day, man. He's gonna die. Now you're gonna die even more now that you're on the king's wife's bed. Whew. You know what I mean? It was a bad day for Haman. Read on.
Then the king said, the king, will we force the queen also?
So it's like, what?
In the house?
So it's like, what? First you want her race of a people dead. Now you're trying to force the queen, meaning rape the queen. You're trying to rape my wife in my house as a king. Haman's dead, man. You know what I mean? But let's read on.
As the words went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face.
Oh, meaning they bagged him, man. As the word went out, the king's like, get him. The bag just went around his face. Bam, you know what I mean? He can't breathe, dragged him back. You know what I mean? Haman's dead, man. Read on.
And Harbonah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold, also the gallows 50 cubits, which Haman has made for Mordecai, who has spoken good for the king, and standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon.
So imagine that, man. The same gallows he made for a Mordecai. Haman got hanged on it, man. And listen, man, you know what I mean? This is what a lot of people don't understand. When you serve the Lord, you don't want to become an enemy of who the Lord loves, man. And listen, go ahead.
Right, I never actually saw this before, but the Chamberlain actually started backing Esther. So it's like he wasn't an Israelite, but as soon as he realized there was favor in the Israelites, right, he decided that he's coming on the side of the Israelites as well.
There you go. There's a precept in a Proverbs about when a man's ways please the Lord, even his enemies shall be at peace with him. If anyone can find that one, it's in Proverbs.
So, you know, when we talk about enemies, is it like within Israel, or is it like any enemy?
It's talking about any enemy.
Okay, what did you want in Proverbs, sir?
It's when a man's ways please the Lord. We probably have to search for it. I don't know the exact chapter and verse, but it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, Proverbs 16 and 7.
Book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 7.
Good.
When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him.
And there you go, man. What a lot of us don't understand is the root of life is serving the Lord, man. You know what I mean? You're trying to get your enemies off your back. Stand on the Lord, man. Serve the Lord. You know, because of the church and the mosque, they've taught us if you want peace, you got to join them. And as you can see, that doesn't bring peace, man. What that does, it brings disrespect. It brings humiliation. Why? Because your enemy doesn't respect you. You know what I mean? You've submitted yourself unto his way of life. While as if you want to be at peace with your enemies, stand on the Lord, man. Keep them laws. Wear them fringes, keep the laws, man. And guess what? People would respect you for it. They may not like it, but you know what? He stands on what he believes, man. While as when you join him, people lose respect. They're like, nah, man, you know what I mean? He's a black man wearing a man dressed like me. Nah, man, those things are what you call signs of weakness. While as when you serve the Lord, your enemies respect you. And guess what? They make peace with you. So no, you know what? I don't like what he does. I don't agree with what he does, but I respect it, man. Let's read on in the book of Esther.
Right. Esther chapter 7, verse 10. So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath pacified.
And then listen, man, once Haman was hanged, then the king's wrath was pacified, meaning while Haman was alive, the king was angry, man. Then as soon as Haman died, the king just took a deep breath, like, okay, cool, man. You know what I mean? He's gone now, man. And to get hanged, it's a very horrible death, man. Imagine this, you can't breathe, man. You know what I mean? We are breathing right now, but imagine you can't breathe. There's a noose around your neck and you want to breathe and you just can't do it. And you're kicking your legs, and I believe your neck breaks. Yeah, so you know what I mean. It's a very rough way to die, man.
So, like, actually, what could happen is that when you release your feet and you start actually hanging, what happens is if your neck break, you die straight away. But sometimes the neck is strong, so they just choke you.
And that's a rough one, man. You better hope your neck breaks.
Basically, the breaking of the neck is like to paralyze your body, and the noose strangling you. That's basically taking your breath away.
Damn, that's a very rough way to die, man. You know what I mean? And listen, that happened to Haman, the enemies of the Jews, man. I mean, What he wanted to happen to us happened to him. Why? Because the Lord was with us that day, man.
Right.
Reader. Oh, it's like you read that chapter. I don't. Yeah, read chapter 8.
Chapter 8. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her.
Mm-hmm.
And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews.
So now she's telling him about what Haman wanted to do, how he wanted all the Jews killed, man. So now what? Him being the king, he has the power to what? Stop that, man. He has the power to what? Let the Jews live, man. And guess what? All this happened. Why? Because Esther was willing, man. Esther done something that she could have died for. But like I said, when you serve the Lord, half of it is you gotta be willing, man. Remember, for you to present yourself before the king, you gotta be called. Esther was not called, but what? Esther was willing, man. She was willing to stand up in front of the king, and she might die. And because she was willing, the king found favor in her sight. Meaning what? She was willing to give her life to save our ancestors, man.
Right.
We are alive today from a woman that was courageous, man. That's why we remember this feast day. And it's a lesson for us. When you serve the Lord, half of it is you gotta be willing, man. You gotta be willing to go to camp. You gotta be willing to keep the laws. You gotta be willing, and then the Lord does the other half. If you're not willing, then the Lord ain't with you, man. The Lord wants to see what you are going to do. And when you do it, the Lord does the rest, man.
That's right.
That's life. You're willing to go to camp. You're going to be protected, man. You show the Lord, listen, Lord, I'm willing to die for you, man. I'm going to go out there and mock Islam, mock the church, mock anything. And the Lord goes, really? Okay, then. You're going to come home safe, man.
Right, that's right.
And guess what? If you don't go to camp, you're going to die, man.
That's right.
You know what I mean? You're trying to save your life, not going to camp, and you're going to die by a car accident, man. So you're better off doing this than not doing it. Reader.
Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letter devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces.
Read on.
For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come upon my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred?
Listen, Esther loved her people, man. She's telling the king, like, how can I watch this happen, man? Just because I'm the queen. Listen, like, what would happen to my people? I couldn't live with that, man. You know what I mean? With her being under him, she loved her people. And she couldn't go, well, I'm fine. I'm under the king, knowing what would happen to her people, man. And that's something we've lost in the world, man. We've lost self-love, man. And when I say self-love, I'm talking about love for our race of people. We only love ourselves. It's all about you. You know what I mean? You can't put yourself in harm's way for nobody else. Because I got my family. I got bills to pay. I can't pay camp fund. You know what I mean? What about me? Not knowing in the UPK, we risk our life for you, man. You know what I mean? We talk about our God so that you can have a better family, man. You can have a better area. You can have a better lifestyle, man. Blacks and Hispanics and Native Indians, that we can live together in harmony, man, and have what is called the kingdom of heaven. Reader.
Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged on the gallows,
because he laid his hand upon the Jews.
And there you go. Listen, man. Haman and his family, all of them was hanged. His sons, his wives, everything. Why? Because the Lord is not with Haman. The Lord is with blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians.
That's right.
Reader.
Write ye also for the Jews as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For the writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring, may no man reverse.
Read on.
Then were the king's scribes called at the time in the 3rd month, that is the month Sivan, on the 12th day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and the deputies, and rulers of the provinces, which are from India and Ethiopia, 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and unto every people after their language.
So now this law was written to every region where the Persians and the Medes ruled, man. It was written everywhere that what? Those that wanted us dead, we was going to take vengeance on them, man. And of course, we was living everywhere. We was scattered from India to Ethiopia to Egypt. You know, we was scattered in all these places. Read on.
And to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries. Wherein the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and the province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey.
And listen, man, the king granted us a law that all that wanted us dead, we could put them to death, man.
Right.
We could fight back. We could defend ourselves, man. And let me tell you something. With the a church, they've got a lot to answer for, man.
That's right.
With the church, they've even took from the black mind self-defense.
Right.
Do you know how ridiculous it is to not fight for yourself, to not defend your family? And in the church, you know what I mean? They don't do nothing, man. There's been lots of incidents where a white man has a gun in a church and they don't fight him.
Right.
Listen, man, it's taking you from your family, taking you from your sons and daughters, and you're praying on the floor, man. God, please, no. That is ridiculous, man. And that's what the church does. It takes away common sense. Listen, I want to live. You know what I mean? I've got a family I want to see. And if I gotta do something to you, I'm doing it, man. If I gotta gouge out your eyes, then my thumbs are going in your eyes, man. So, sorry, man. I'll worry about all the goo later, but right now, them thumbs are going in your eyes, you know what I mean? And we'll worry about that later. But listen, man, I'm living. And listen, what you're reading here, that's been taken of us, man, from religion. That you have the right to fight for yourself and defend yourself by all means, man. Go ahead, Matthew.
2 phrases they always use is you're bigger than that. Right? Right? And you must rise above that. Right? When somebody does you wrong, you must rise above that and forget about it and move on, rather than deal with it.
There you go, and they say that because they're afraid, man. In the church, Christians are afraid. They are cowards, man.
That's right.
Those men are weak, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? No man from the church could do what we do, man.
Right.
Listen, I'm gonna rise above you when I'm on top of you on the floor, just laying it down. You know what I mean? That's the only rising above you I'm doing. You know what I mean? I can't relate to what they're saying, but my rising above you is not the same thing, man. With the elbows and just breaking it down, that's the rising above you, man. You know what I mean? But that other stuff you're on about, you know, that's not UPK, man. Reader.
Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month Adar, the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all the people. and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies.
Read on.
So the posts that rode upon the mules and camels went out being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment. And the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad.
Read on.
The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And in every province, in every city, wheresoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day.
And listen, man, they had a feast and a good day. And listen, man, that is that feast today, man.
That's right.
And it was yesterday as well, of course. But listen, that's the feast that we are celebrating right now, where we was meant to die, and because of our obedience to the Lord and a woman that wasn't afraid to die, we lived. And that's why we celebrate this feast, man.
Right. It's like if it's not a law, it's still a holy convocation.
No, this is a so of course in the law you won't find this holiday, I'm saying like that, in the law, but it's a, what's the word, it's a Memorial Day, so we remember it.
Does it, the question is, does it need to be a law to be a holy convocation?
Yes, okay. In the law, those feast days are holy convocation. They are a must. What you're reading out right now, is it a law? No, it's not. But it's a Memorial Day, meaning we remember what this woman did and this day.
Purim and dedication are not holy convocations.
No, they're not holy convocations. It's not law, but do we remember these days? Absolutely, man. You know what I mean? So we remember what this woman did and that we lived. So it's a day to remember. Is it in the law? No. But do we remember this day in the UPK? Absolutely. Read on.
And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them.
Okay, so now many people read this and go, you see, you can become a Jew. Now, a few verses above, what was happening? We had the law that what the enemies against us, we could fight against them. So when it says many people became Jews, meaning what? They acted like us, they addressed like us, so that what? We didn't put them to death. So why? In like their land, we wouldn't see them and go, they want us dead. So they started acting like us, addressing like us, so that what? They could live, man. It doesn't mean we gave them our laws, we taught them the commandments. These people didn't want to die, so they became like us for the purpose of survival, man. I know. Read on. And also, you can get chapter 9, bro.
Chapter 9. Now in the 20th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had ruled over them, that hated them.
Read on.
The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as saw their hurt, and no man could withstand them.
And no man could withstand us, man. Meaning when we wage war, no one could stop that, man. Why? Because the king made it law. Like, what are you gonna do? So, obviously, we had permission from the king that all those that wanted us dead, we could counterattack, man. We had the permission to grab swords, grab arms, fight back, and to defend our race of people, man. And you gotta remember these days. Why? Because right now we are in such a defenseless state, man. Where all we gotta do is just march and listen, man, we gotta sort something out. Peace relations and all things that we know are never gonna work. Well, now imagine this: we had power, we had the ability to do something, and the ISUPK and the Commanding General Yohana, we work on that ability. We don't sing and dance. We don't sing psalms and hymns. We are actually practical in working on getting a defense for blacks, Latinos, and Native Indians.
That's right.
Read on.
Khan and one Khan, and all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and officers of the king helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them.
So meaning we even had help. Meaning the people that work for the king, they was even helping us destroy our enemies, man. That's how powerful we got in the Persian and the Mede Empire. Read on.
Khan and one Khan. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater.
And there, man. So as the years went on, his name got better and better, man. It grew. This man had a big reputation for himself under the Persian and the Mede Empire.
Right.
And listen, it even happens now. In England, so many of us get reputations, man. It's nothing new. We are a great people. And wherever we go, listen, we are going to reach the top. Why? Because that shows us we are the chosen people of God.
Right.
Even from being at the bottom, somehow we just get there, man. Why? Because the Lord is with us. Read on.
Khan and one Khan. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his Salakia, verse 5. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them.
And imagine that, man. You know what I mean? A time's coming. Listen, like, I'm not saying it's now, but when a Christ returns, you're gonna have that power, man.
That's right.
To do what you want unto your enemies, man.
Right.
In the Apocrypha, it says, with Christ, he gave out many crowns. And with those crowns comes power, man. And if you stand with the Lord, you will receive a crown, man. In the Apocrypha, Ezra saw it. It says, with Christ, he was a taller than the rest, and he gave out crowns. If you have a crown, you got power, man. You got power to decide who eats. You have power to decide who lives, man. You have power to go, you know what, Africa, you ain't getting no rain, man. Been dancing all naked around that, you know what I mean? Akumaluma, you know what I mean? Listen, man, no rain, man. And they're like, I don't want, please. Like, no, man, no rain for a week, man. If you serve Christ, you will get that power, man. You'll get the power to stop the Chinese eating cats and dogs, man. Listen, man, they was eating cats and dogs. You know what? You ain't getting no rice today, man. Talking about egg fried rice. You ain't getting no rice, China. I don't want, please. Like, no, man. I mean, if you serve Christ, you get that power, man. You get that crown, man. And guess what? You gotta earn it, man. And like I said in the class, half of it is if you're willing to do it, man. Read on.
Khan. And in Shushan, the place, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parshathander, and Dalphon, and Aspartha, and Paratha, and Adalai, and Adaliah, and Aradatha, and Pamasta, and Arazai, and Aradai, and Vijizatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the sons of Hamadatha, the enemy of the Jews slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand.
And listen, we despise Haman, man. Even though we wiped out his family, we didn't even take none of their goods, man. Those things are cursed, man. Read on.
Khan. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan, the place was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan, the place, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is the petition? And it shall be granted thee. Or what is thy request further?
So now the king's like, listen, man, like, what more do you want to do? You know what I mean? You've killed so many people. Like, what more can I give? You've had the vengeance unlike your enemies. Wherever your race is, they've also had a law that they can fight back. Like, what more can I give you? Read on.
Khan of the one Khan, and it shall be done. Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow, also according unto the day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. And the king commanded it so to be done. And the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons.
So imagine that. So imagine that, man. You know what I mean? What Haman wanted done to us, it didn't only happen to him only, but it happened to his family, man.
Right.
It shows that, listen, you serve the Lord, man. You know what I mean? These days that we read about, it's a testimony to us that if you serve the Lord, you can see a fall of an enemy, man. And let me tell you something. You know, I don't want to say any names, but in the UPK, many brothers, they've told me many stories about there was people that hated them, enemies, and one day they just died, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? They was here today, gone tomorrow, man.
God.
And all that happens, why? Because the Lord loves you, man.
That's right.
The Lord was with you, and He wasn't with them.
Right.
And like I said, you gotta earn that, man. You know, so many of us think the Lord just loves you, and it's just because He does. Nah, man. The Lord loves you because you earned His love. You do what He says, and for that, it's gonna go. You know what? No one's gonna harm you, man. Anyone that is against you, I'm against them.
Right.
Read on.
Khan and one Khan. For the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together in the 14th day, also of the month Adar, and slew 300 men at Shushan, but on the prey laid not their hand. But the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives and had rest from their enemies.
Read on.
Salakia, and slew of their foes 70 and 5,000, but they laid not their hands on the prey.
This man, we did some executing, killing. I mean, we killed thousands of people, man. Why? Because they wanted us dead. But you know what I mean? With self-defense, it's in the Bible, man. I mean, no one can have a knife on you and you go on your hands and knees, man. You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. You need to do something, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? And what's ridiculous is, even in the Bible, King David fought. In the Psalms, you know what I mean? You can read in lots of the Psalms. King David said, the Lord taught my hands to make war, man.
Right.
Meaning, yes, the Lord was with King David, but King David still had to fight. It wasn't, you know, King David got on his hands and knees and his enemies were just gone. King David physically had to fight, man. Read on.
Another one come. On the 13th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness.
And there you go, man. Again, it's just reiterating it that this day was a day of feasting and gladness, man. Just like today, man, eating the pizza and chips, man. That's feasting and gladness, man. You know what I mean? I'm trying to cut down on some calories, but it's Purim, you know. I have to do it, man. I'll think about it later. You know what I mean? A reader.
Another one come. Therefore, the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and of sending portions one to another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly.
Yearly. So now he writ it as a rule that listen, we should remember this day every year, man, with feasting and with gladness. And we should be glad, man. We should be glad for what Esther did. We should be glad for the example of what we should do. And that's why we're celebrating it yearly, man. In the UPK every year, the feast of Purim, we're gonna keep it, man. We're gonna be feasting, gonna be eating, gonna be doing all of that, man. And don't forget these things. Why? Because no other nation forgets their history. We're in England hearing about World War I, which was over 100 years ago. You know what I mean? And then they got the nerve to tell you it's in the past, man. When you remember a war that was over 100 years old, man. You wasn't in the war, but you remember it. Why? Because your people went through it, man. So how much more should we remember these days? You know what I mean? Obviously, in this life, I wasn't there, but I'm gonna remember that day. Why? Because my people went through it, man. Read on.
As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor.
And there you go, man. So you know what I mean. This is the feast day right here, and of course, you know what I mean. This was handed down every year, so you know this is where you find it. If you wanted to know where it was, you know, we'll keep this every year, and just remember why. And every year we're gonna break down why it happened, and also let it be an example to you, man, in your everyday life. You know what I mean? Let her example reflect on you, man. You know what I mean? And you know, listen, what, and just let it be known that, you know, her example, that can be you, man. You know what I mean? There's many things we read in the Bible, and it can be you if you're willing to do it, man. If you don't get afraid, if you're courageous, you can do the same thing too, man. So that's the class. You know what I mean? I'm handing it over to priest and officer of 5,000, Shamgar, man.
Clap it up. It's the ISUPK security announcement. We got the ISUPK started out 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under command of General Hunter. Root for a new brother and sister. When a new brother and sister coming to the school, sorry. When a new brother and sister coming to the school, they're offering this for 6 months. They have to be saluted only. They can shut themselves in the world. The transportation teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, the person has interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head. 6 months period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithe, which is a commandment, Numbers 18:21, Malachi 3:8-10, means 10% in the Hebrew, Ma'ashra. 10% of every penny, of any increase, the Lord gives to the treasury department or teach a priest from, not mandatory, whatever amount you like. Upcoming holy convocations is the Passover, Lord 54 Passover. Which will be held in Raleigh, North Carolina. All Akim and Aquafim are encouraged to take the transit that is provided for each event.
That's right.
Any brother in the school want to be a trooper, start wearing all black boots, shirt, pants, headband, and scarf. I imagine, rise and face the east. Abanawa, Shabbat Kadash, Ayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakuka, Taba'am, Ratzaka, Ayah, Aisha, Barakazah, Kawar, Ayah, Washmaya, the Falano, the Kam, Yawab, Wasalakina, Wafinawa,
Brother R.
Brother R.
Brother Aino.
Brother Aino.
Brother Sawan.
Brother Sawan.
Abal. Shaino.
Shaino.
Mayan.
Mayan.
Right.
Kayar. Lakar. Amalapa. Walla I will love you. Amen.
In the English. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy kingdom come.
Thy will be done.
Thy will be done.
In earth. As it is in heaven.
As it is in heaven.
Give us this day.
Give us this day.
Our daily bread.
Our daily bread.
And forgive us our debt.
And forgive us our debts.
As we forgive our debtors.
We forgive our debtors.
And lead us not. Into temptation.
Into temptation.
But deliver us.
From
evil.
From evil.
For thine is the kingdom.
For thine is the kingdom.
And the power.
And the power.
And the glory.
And the glory.
Forever. So be it.
So be it.
And with that, the courtesy salute. Men of Israel, I Imajum Shabbat, Imajum Barak, Yahweh Shem Yahushua Barakatah, Yahweh Shem Yahushua Barakatah, Yajum Matah, Sar, which means to turn, face assistance. Men of Israel, Imajum Shabbat, Imajum Barak, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, Yajum Matah, dismissed. That's what y'all my pizza. Yeah.